This week on Shift Points, we do a complete carburetor disassembly using this handheld toolkit from WAF Racing. Thank you guys for joining us. Alright guys, welcome back. This week, we're going to work on a very specific project this week. As you guys have seen over the past year or so, we have become really close with some guys over in Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. It's WAF Racing, or WAF Racing, I believe is how Chris pronounces it. WAF Racing, and what they do is they print 3D printed parts, a lot of which is specifically for carburetor applications, like this guy, which is a carburetor cover. And they have a bunch of different stuff that they've been putting out over the past year or so, designing it in-house and then doing a lot of testing themselves. But luckily we have become good friends with them and they have sent us stuff to test also. And it's just been a really fun collaboration working with those guys doing all this. So this week what I wanted to do was to show off their new carburetor toolbox. So this guy right here, I'll put it here in front of the 55 so you can see it better. This guy right here is going to replace anything that you need in your carburetor toolbox. I can do a complete disassembly of a carburetor using every piece right here, literally in the palm of your hand. Now, you guys have seen us before work on carburetors, take them apart, do refreshes, put kits in them, things like that. And every time we've had to pull out this, which is a toolbox that Dad has specifically put together to work on carburetors. This is basically any tools that he needs, bowls to get the fuel out of them, a bunch of different stuff that is inside of this guy right here. And it is my intent to go through this carburetor today, take it completely apart, and what we're going to do is only use this right here. I have that toolbox sitting there only because I wanted to show it off and show that what we have done in the past. But this week we're going to use this guy right here and disassemble this carburetor completely, probably put a kit in it, see what it needs, and then put it back together and put it on Dad's Fairlane. So like I told you guys, the guys, Chris over in Nashville, they 3D print a lot of these components. Basically, every piece inside of this has been 3D printed. So it's all made of a nylon style plastic, so it's all resistant to fuel and different things like that. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. This stuff is going to hold up to the fuel and anything that you get it exposed to, and so we're not worried about that at all. So we'll get that out of the way first thing. As we take this kit apart here, you can see inside of it, we've got different tools. We got different ones laid out. This guy right here, it is a screwdriver. This is metal, this piece, so they've actually 3D printed this handle and then put the screwdriver's bits into the end of it. And you can see with this one, everything is labeled. So we've got our squirters, our air bleeds, level screws. That's what this tool is used for. Again, same thing with this guy right here. So this is going to be specifically to take the bowls off of the carburetor. This odd shaped piece here. And the other thing that I love about it is that there's so much like little hidden things, like that guy right there fits down in here, and they've done a lot of work to get all of this stuff to fit inside of this little box. So this guy right here, specifically for our power valves, our jets, and our floats. So that's what this adjustment is for. That's what this tool is going to let us adjust or take apart. And then last thing here, this is for the accelerator pump. It's going to give you a handle to take that off with. And then last thing is this plastic wrench right here, which is for the accelerator pump and to hold the float whenever you're making float adjustments. Those are the actual tools that are inside this kit here. Now, let's get into the function of the toolbox itself. So inside of the toolbox right here, we've got different places for placement of gaskets, storage in here. These are needle and seat gaskets, accelerator pump gaskets, for the power valve itself. And if we take and remove this pin right here in the top and we put it in the back side of the toolbox here, it pushes out our metering block and our fuel bowl gaskets as well. So they offer this kit in various different ways. You can get it with the gaskets, without the gaskets. But like I said, they've really kind of thought of everything inside of this toolbox to make it really easy and compact so you can take it to the racetrack or take it with you wherever you're going. Because at the end of the day, these guys are racers through and through. And even right now as we speak, they're on SICK 66, the SICK Week event that is being put on as a cruise down Route 66. So again, these guys build this stuff because they're using it themselves. The other storage part of it that goes with it is this piece right here that lays out on the bottom. And this is actually storage for more jets, and these smaller holes up here are for air bleeds, which I don't have any extras here with me, or I would have them in here right now. But you can see that these jets, they actually screw down into this and they're held securely in place, and then you can bring a selection with you. Again, if you're going to be at the racetrack or whatever you need to, you think you might need them, you can just unscrew these right out of that piece right there, and you've got a new jet to make any sort of adjustments or changes that you need to. The other part of it is the storage has also thought up different power valves and different pump squirters that you might potentially need. These can all be stored right in here, and this slot here beside our power valve is for accelerator pump cams. So the plastic cams that you may need to make adjustments there, they can be stored there as well. So again, kind of an all-around, all-inclusive, any kind of part of a carburetor that you may need, you can store it right here with you and take it with you. Now, in our various videos that we've done over the past couple years now, you've seen us work on multiple different carburetors. Some for circle tracks, like the 651 that goes on Eugene Circle Track. You can see that video. We completely took it apart, and there was some fuel cell foam in it that we had to get cleaned out. So we have done some things like this before in the past, but this carburetor is a little special, and it's a pretty interesting little piece, and one that we actually found yesterday. We knew we had it, we forgot exactly where it was here in the shop. We stumbled on it yesterday. This is a Holley HP. It's a 600 carburetor, and the thing that makes it kind of tricked, at least for me and for us, is that this carburetor was used in the 90s on a Busch series car. So we had a close family friend of ours that owned a Busch team down in Greensboro, and this is one that that ended up getting here into the shop. We want to go through this carburetor because it being used in that way, first off, we want to see if it's what the book says that it is. If there was any changes that they made, maybe to be run on that Busch car. It'll be interesting to see kind of what is inside of this. We do have our Holley book here that gives us the specs that are called out for this, squirter sizes and stuff like that, jets and things like that. So we're going to go through it and just kind of see what it is, just for fun. The other thing is that this carburetor hasn't been run in almost 30 years, so it probably needs a good refresh. We're going to get that taken apart, put a kit in it, make sure everything's good with it, and then we're going to slap it onto Dad's Fairlane, because that is the epitome of performance. Before we actually get started on the teardown itself, the first thing we have done here is get it set on WAF Racing's carburetor stand here. You can actually see it's got two studs on it that lets this carburetor sit here. Works for 4150s, works for 4160s, and for square bore carburetors as well. So it's a really useful piece. It lets the throttle blades and everything work how they should, so you can test everything sitting literally right here on the bench, and it makes disassembly really easy. So we are taking this apart as we go here, and first thing that we're taking out here, just so that we can identify it and keep it documented, is our idle air bleeds. So the first ones that we took out were the primary idle air bleeds. This is using the long screwdriver from the kit, and the primaries on this carburetor are 74s, and the secondaries are
74s.
Also 74s. Okay, cool.
Yep.
We are keeping notes on this because, like I said, we want to put it back kind of how it was in general, if it makes sense, and then also compare it directly to the book, which you can see all the specs are in that book right there that you can see beside that.
Another thing that's kind of interesting with this thing, especially on a race style carburetor, is they've welded up the back air bleeds on the throttle blades just on the secondary. The primary is still open. Evidently they didn't like all that air trying to adjust the idle mixture, idle quality with the four holes, so that these holes have been welded up.
Look in here, you can see right there that has been welded up, where the one here in the front is not. It is still open. So now the next thing that he's taking out here is the high-speed air bleeds, and those are all 445s. The book actually doesn't call these out, so we're not sure about that as far as like what it was supposed to be, but they are 45s here in the carburetor now.
Took accelerator pump squirters off next. This one has a 28.
That's what the book called out.
Yep, and the secondary, that's primary, and the secondary is a 29.
I know. Also what the book called out.
Interesting.
So again, as we pulled those idle air bleeds and the pump discharge nozzles out, we did use this screwdriver here. It's got the Phillips head on one side, so you can use that to get the squirters out, and then it has the flat screwdriver on this side. But in general, that tool right there is what we use. Now, next thing we're going to do is go ahead and take our bowls and metering blocks off, and that's where this guy right here comes in really handy. This is a metal piece, and what they've done here is they actually have this and they've turned it down, and from what I've seen from their testing they've done, they have tried to make this clear as many different carburetors as possible, and you can see it goes on there just like that. And even with this 30-year-old carburetor that hasn't been apart in that long, we go ahead and just that simple, you can go ahead and start taking these screws out and go ahead and pull them all out. Now we'll do that and get these bowls took off.
Another thing's kind of interesting about this carburetor, I kept noticing this shiny, look like a drop of oil.
It's like epoxy in there, right?
That's what they did. They've got some kind of, they seal, these boosters are just staked to the main body of the carburetor. And these, with the vibration and all these carburetors had to go through, they have actually, looks like some kind of clear epoxy or some type of sealer. They've got those sealed to that body so they won't vibrate and shake the stake loose and tear up a $30,000 engine. So
or more.
Yeah, so I just noticed that.
All right, so we got this side of it off. It's like surprisingly clean. See anything?
No speck of nothing. This don't surprise me.
Gasket that's on the metering block looks brand new also.
I don't know if that thing's gonna come off or not.
So what we've run into is the metering block itself is actually stuck to the bowl pretty heavily. So we did have to cheat a little. We grabbed a putty knife there to go ahead and get that broke loose. And you can see we did get it taken off there. Looks like brand new inside.
Float level's dead on, parallel, flat. Know it'll need needles and seats, but...
So one tool that Dad saw immediately whenever he first saw this kit that he liked was this tool to use to take the power valves off. So what we normally have used up to this point is a 1-inch wrench, which gives you a lot of leverage and it gives you the possibility to cause that to be stripped. And what they've done here is they have this square tool. You can see it is made specifically for the power valves themselves, and it's got this square side of it which fits right over this, and it keeps you from over torquing that like you would with a 1-inch wrench.
It still gives you enough leverage to take them loose,
it out,
even if they've been together for a long time.
So we did see on the primary side, we had, what was the jets in there?
73s.
73s, and is that what the book called for?
No, 70s.
Called for 70s, okay. So the book's called for 70s. While Dad does some searching for some parts, I'm going to go ahead and take the secondary side of this apart. One thing I don't think we'll have to do later on, so I'm going to go ahead and do it now just in case I forget. So we have the wrench here, has two sides to it. One's a 5/8, one's a 3/8, and the other one has this pretty tricky little grip. It also has a hex inside of it, and what that's for is making any sort of adjustments to your accelerator pump. So this 3/8 wrench fits here to make any adjustments, loosening and tightening, and so that wrench is there, and that is what for that is. And since that has a nylon nut on it, it's a little tough to turn, so that's why this has that little bit of leverage there that you can make any sort of adjustments as you need. Here has that flathead screwdriver. It's a wide, thick-headed flathead screwdriver, and it's made for taking out the jets from the metering block. You can see how nicely that fits and how easily that comes apart there using that other side of that after you remove the power valve. Alright, we're coming down to kind of the end of the disassembly here, and the last thing we need to do is pull the needle and seat out here. And so you can see the 5/8 inch side of that wrench goes over the nut there, and then you can use the flathead here on the end of the screwdriver to break that loose, unscrew that, and we can go ahead and pull the needle and seat out. One last thing that I almost forgot about for this screwdriver is it also can be used to take the floats out from the float bowls using that flat head side of that screwdriver. So now that we've got this thing completely apart, Dad's breaking into his kit that he has here. It's not a master kit, it's just a renew kit. We are going to replace the needle and seats in this carburetor. We're going to put all new gaskets in it. We're going to put all new accelerator pumps. At that point where I say accelerator pumps, these screws are a different size than this Phillips screwdriver here. And we and Dad were talking about it. And changing out an accelerator pump like at the track or something like that is not something that you're going to do super often. So that's why this screwdriver has that kind of blunt nose on it to make it really easy for taking out the pump squirter. But it does not fit the screws on this accelerator pump, just for your information. Now, maybe this is something that Chris and them can build in somewhere else. I'm not sure. I'll talk to them about it and see what they say. But just wanted to give you that information. So we did have to get a putty knife so that we could get the metering blocks off because the gaskets were stuck so hard. So that was one extra piece we had to use. And the other thing we did was just more of a pointed nose tip screwdriver so that we could take the accelerator pump out. But that is it. Everything else has been through this kit. About the stand here, being able to open those throttle blades. This thing's been sitting on a shelf for, like I said, 30 years probably. And so we're going to air everything out, make sure there's nothing plugging anything up, and make sure there's no dust here in the carburetor itself. So initially we weren't going to take the base plate off of it, but we are going to go ahead and take it off. We noticed there's kind of a little bit of a step between the body and the base plate itself. So we'll go ahead and take this nut off here, hold the carburetor up, pull these studs off of our stand, lay them off to the side. And we can actually take the stand and flip it over and put the body of the carburetor on the stand like this, which gives us access to the 6 screws here on our base plate, so we can go ahead and get it pulled off. Alright, so you can see there where the base plate meets the body itself, and there's actually a little step in there, and there still actually is a little bit of a step, but it's as good as we can get it. But there is quite a bit of movement between the body and the base plate here. We noticed while we were trying to get it lined up best we could. Don't know if it's intentional, don't know if that was just how it was put together from the factory. I'm not sure on that one. So we got it lined up the best we could, and we'll go ahead and bolt and tighten it back down. Alright, got that lined up. Time to go ahead and start putting this thing back together. We're going to do that a little quicker. So one thing we noticed is that using this try and get in here to get into our floats, you can do it. It's just it's a little hard to do, and it's a little slow can be. But another thing that these guys make is this screwdriver right here. And what you can do with it here in this situation, just to give you a little bit more room, and since it's a little longer, you can use that guy to get these floats tightened back up. But this guy right here is for setting your idle air screws, and we talked about that. You've seen this before if you've been following the channel for a while. I've done a short on it. But the thing that's pretty cool about it, you can get very accurate rotations so that you can get all 4 corners of your carburetor, your idle air screws, set exactly the same. So the purpose is that this has increments on it, 0 to 8, going this way, 0 to 8. And it has actual clicks. If you have it like this, held the front part of this, you can see it's a 2-piece deal, and you rotate this side, you can see that that rotates the actual flathead bit itself. So again, this is to make sure that however you set, whether it be with an air fuel, an AFR gauge, or by sound, or however it is that you do it, this allows you to make sure that you get all 4 corners the same. Now this is kind of what I believe they call the basic version, where it takes 2 hands. You hold it like this and you make your rotations, and that bit rotates. They do make a second version that they call the Pro version, and it's pretty cool. And you can actually hold this with 1 hand and hold the back part of it with these fingers, and then you can rotate this part with the front with your thumb and your index finger, and it rotates this. So it's made to be used one-handed. And you get those same 8 clicks, so that you make sure you get your stuff the same. So I did want to talk about that we will, going into the future, since we have these, we'll use one of these to tighten up the floats themselves. But there's just another product at WAF Racing that you can pick up. Alright, back together, and that is literally how easy it is to use this stuff. So I think that's going to wrap us up for this week and this episode. I am all about helping people that help us, and we got hooked up with Chris and the guys over at WAF Racing. It's been, I don't know, 6 months or so now, and man, we just kind of hit it right off. We still haven't even met in person. We've only ever talked through Instagram. So make sure to check them out. Check out their carburetor stands. These things are really useful. They're super lightweight and they're really easy to use, and they're, like most of their stuff, super versatile. Like I said, you can run 4150s, 4160s, and any sort of spreadboard carburetor using this same stand. Idle air screwdriver that you'll probably see us use whenever we put this carburetor onto the Fairlane in the next video that'll be coming. Let's pick up one of those. They make these super cool carburetor covers. These things are really handy, again, at the racetrack, because you can put one on here. It has holders for your tools. It has a flat spot here to put your screws and things like that. Also has spots here for your jets if you're making adjustments. You can put the ones you want to put in here, take the carburetor apart, swap them, make sure you don't get anything mixed up. These are really nice. So that is one thing. They also have another version of those as well that is just a cover. It's a lot simpler. It's a little cheaper. It doesn't have all these features. It doesn't have the holders and stuff like that. So that as well. They make these for 4150s, and also, out of a request from us, they made them for Dominators as well. So no matter what version of a carburetor you've got, you can pick up one of these covers, and they're really, really useful and very handy to use. And then of course, what we use throughout this whole video here is the toolbox here. Literally can all fit in your hand, and you can see based off of what we did today how useful this guy is, and definitely worth picking up and something nice to have, especially if you're doing like drag and drive stuff like they are literally right now. It's really lightweight, doesn't take up much space. So check them out. I'll go ahead and put the link in the description for them so that you can check out their website and see what all they've got. And of course, you can always reach out to them on social media. They're always looking to make new things, whether it be 3D scans or different tools or stuff like that. So if you got any suggestions for them or something that you would like to see them make, maybe add to the website or personally for you, they are about that stuff. So follow us. Don't forget us, Shift Points here. We got to subscribe to the channel if you like this, if you learned something, and also make sure to follow us on social media. We are really close to 10,000 followers on Facebook, and we're pushing over 9,000 on Instagram, and we just hit 3,000 subscribers on YouTube. Guys, that's really big. I mean, we literally in a year picked up 2,000 subscribers. We've been putting a ton of work into this. We want to make better videos, we want to make more videos, and we want to keep doing all this. And the way that you do that is by following along with us and doing all of those things. Hopefully we got some more things coming for you guys, and we will see you next week.